I just love the whole topic because this is something I'm very passionate about, and it focuses on my PhD thesis at the moment. So I really have a lot of passion for it. Uh, One of the biggest things that we see on aspects of privacy, the number of cyber crimes that are happening that goes against privacy and safety. The first one I want to hint on is cyberbullying, of course, which is very, very common. Nowadays, just people have said, we have trusted the social media more than the human beings we have. I see this, it even goes into marital issues. You have a misunderstanding with your wife, you post it and you want to attract comments from people. And that's why people will give you the hell out of them, because that's when you receive all the unkind comments you'll ever get in the world. And that's from there when you will develop your mental health issues come, as someone said from here. And the second one I'm talking about is on child protection. There's a very big issue with child protection when it comes to the digital space. I don't know what's wrong with mothers of nowadays. They like it when they see that they post their kids. Okay, I'll get there. I'll get there. I'm justifying why. Because this is something I'm working on. Women, sorry, plus men. Let me be gender sensitive. Women plus men, or even uncles. We like it when we take videos of the young ones. My niece now, she's learning how to eat. She can dance. She can do this. You post on TikTok. You're compromising your child's safety. People can link you. You never know you have enemies anywhere. You link your child to your enemies because they know who your child is. Assume you're in a political position. People know your children. Maybe they even know the school they go to. The worst is even you post them when they have their school uniform on. I know the school they're in. I'll attack them from there. So those are dangers we are trying to use. We are so excited about TikTok. Then the worst that we all know, because internet does not forget, is revenge porn. I still have the one from Martha Kay. It happened way back when I was at campus. I was in the same university with her. We were in the same library at UCU. But I'm not committing a crime. I'm reporting what is there. I got it on internet. Because a platform where you're in, someone just sends it to you that, hey, this is it. And you find naked pictures happening. And this basically happening against women. Happening against women. Where their boyfriends can share their things, and I cannot call myself someone participating, because if it has been sent in a WhatsApp group that I'm in, listen to me. Let's get to the gist of this. I know we have passion for this because it affects us as women. That's why I brought it. It's a vice that I'm also trying to fight against. But at a point, your participation, as stated under Section 19 of the Penal Code, diminishes. Because why? You are in a platform, a WhatsApp group, and someone just sends it. You're not participating. You received. I want us to be very clear with the wordings of the law here, so that we don't. I'm very emotional about this topic also because I want women protected. Yes. So those are the few vices I can talk about now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we should be careful of the word that we use. First of all, when we say women, we should say some women, because not all women then post their pictures of their children.
Apologies on that for the ladies here.
And
apologies.
Using the word revenge porn is very misleading. It's now called non-consensual intimate images.
Thank you. My name is Josephine. I would like to maybe add context to the topic today. We are talking about the threats that people face on social media, and we are talking about data protection and data privacy today, I believe. So for me, from the discussion before us today, I appreciate that, in the wake of the 21st century, we cannot avoid social media, and we can't control how people use social media, because social media is the new community that puts us together. We now live life apart, yet together. So we need to go to the grassroots and discover what causes the problems that people face on social media. And one of those is social media literacy, in my opinion. We cannot discuss enough the mental health issues, the body shaming issues without discussing social media literacy. You see, we live in a community where 13-year-olds have access to social media, where every one of us is a subscriber to WhatsApp, to Instagram, to Twitter, to TikTok. But how many times do we find that in institutions, primary schools, people are being taught about how to use social media? Because without having literacy on social media, we are going to have threats on social media. There are very many laws on social media. We have the Computer Misuse Act. But people don't know the repercussions. They don't know the applicability of the laws that we have. They don't know who to run to in the event that they face threat on social media. Recently, a certain famous person in Kampala had their account hacked, and it compromised not just one person, not two, not three. We must have heard about the whole paint issue. But this takes us back to data privacy, data privacy and social media and the threats that people face. While data privacy is at the heart of social media utilization, I still find that despite the fact that we have the PDPO, which is present here today, we have the NITA, the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, people have not yet appreciated the remedies. Like, for instance, we've spoken about social media, but I would like to just add context and make it broad a bit. While we avail data to social media, it's not a problem for a woman to post her children. It's not a problem for a man to post his children or his family. The problem comes in with the people who want to utilize this data for the wrong causes. And that's where data protection comes in. So we have to have mechanisms at hand whereby data protection, the run-to mechanisms are taught to the average Ugandans from the grassroots. January 28th of every year marks the International Data Protection Day. We have very many TikTokers. All of us utilize social media. Plus, if we look at NIRA, if we look at MTN, MTN could send you a message on your birthday. Happy birthday, Josephine. It could be a source of joy, but that means they have your data. Today in Uganda, telecommunication companies and banks, I believe, in my opinion, are the largest harvesters of data information. But are Ugandans aware that they have a right to be protected? I recently learned that, and I wish to share, that if you dial *260, *2#, and you opt for privacy, you could try it out on your cell phone. You could actually report a situation where your data has been compromised, leaked. So, in conclusion, my submission is that we will address threats on social media. We will address social media, but without going back to the National Council of Higher Education, going to primary schools, without the parents being involved, how to teach people how to utilize social media and respect other people, because it's an online community, then we'll keep on addressing the same issues. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I think for social media, there are community standards that are available, but I think majority of people do not know about the community standards that are available on various social media platforms. But also very importantly is that for the case of Uganda, we lack a local presence of the tech companies, which is very critical. But I will leave it to Stella to first comment, then I'll get back to you on
that. The insights that have been given by the participants are very valid. My response is that when you talk about issues to do with data protection, there are different players. As I indicated earlier, it starts with you. What you share, what you provide, how you educate yourself. Most people who use social media are educated. maybe P7 or Senior 4, I don't have the statistics, but most of our social media channels operate in English. And for some reason, they are able to transact. I agree, we need to do a lot of awareness. We need to do a lot of education programs to be able to tell people this is how you transact online. This is how you behave on social media. I think one of the biggest problems that we have is that because technology has put all these things in our hands, sometimes we forget. Where I would have a conversation with Gerald, and it only goes within Gerald's circle. If I put it on social media, even people in America, wherever around the globe will get to know. Many of us forget that. I always tell people, as Ugandans, we've always had that concept of Ubuntu. I normally ask people, when you want to forward, think about it. If this information was about me, would I forward it? If this comment was about me, would I still give the same comment? Sometimes I feel most of these nasty comments and the cyberbullying and the harassment and the issues that we see are because people think they don't know me. They will not be able to identify me. I don't know, let's say, Sandra, so it doesn't matter. So it comes to us as human beings. What would you do? What is right? We are all raised in good families. What is right? What is the right thing to do? Now, beyond the human being, beyond the individual, then there's the state. The state puts in place laws, and it puts in place a law like the Data Protection and Privacy Act. They should do what is good for all of us, because the laws provide the minimum. But if you're running a company, what would you want your children to see? If they had to tell a story about your company, what story do you want to be told? So the responsibility is multifaceted, and all of us have a contribution to make. All of us here have families. If you learn something here, disseminate it. On the part of the Personal Data Protection Office, we've, in our limited time, in the young life that we have as an organization, what we've done, we are also using social media channels, by the way, because it's the new world. So you'll find we have a website, pdpo.go.ug. You'll find us on Twitter. You'll find us on LinkedIn. You'll find us on YouTube. Now, she did talk about, I think she's either a lawyer or someone very interested in privacy. Celebrate Data Privacy Day. For Uganda, we did it last year when the office had just started. And this year we celebrated for an entire month. So we had activities for an entire month. Beyond what we are doing, we asked organizations that collect a lot of data, like banks, like research institutions, to join us to create that much needed awareness. Every month, we hold webinars where we talk about these issues. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a tech company, what does the law require you to do? What does it mean to be compliant? Every month, from the time it was set up, every month, it's the last Thursday, the second last Thursday of the month, we have topical issues. Subsequently, we started recording these webinars. They are normally 1 hour and nothing more. So please go to those channels and educate yourselves. The challenge we acknowledge is that obviously the social media channels, while they are popular here in the cities, most of our rural communities do not have access to these channels. We did set up a TikTok channel, but talking about data protection in a fun way has become a very challenging issue for us. So if you have ideas, please communicate those ideas. You're there, okay, we shall talk. Secondly, we acknowledge that we would want to talk on radio, on TV, but that airspace is expensive. And as you know, just like any startup, when you've just started an office, you don't have as many resources as you should have to be able to translate the law and talk about these issues in a language that our community understands. So we know we have that challenge. Because we sit within NITA, we are very big on tech. The 260 SSDMS channel, we set it up to receive complaints. And so far we have over 3,000 complaints. But we also noticed when we analyzed, because we are required to analyze all those complaints, we found that about 70% are not even data protection. People just got an avenue. This is a government body. This is a complaint. Let me send the complaint. So we receive things to do with pollution. We receive things to do with noise making, everything. So we have about 30% of those complaints, which are 1,000. Now on our side, we want to review all those complaints and resolve them because the law requires us to do that. But the manpower is limited. So when you send that complaint, we shall see that complaint. We will endeavor to resolve that complaint. The only issue is we may resolve it a little bit late, but we shall address it. When we receive those complaints, we call you, we talk to you, we talk to the person you're complaining against. We hold sessions or investigations with them, and then we, in writing, make our decision. So some of that work is already going on. The reason we provided that, because you can get in touch with us either by calling, by using email, by using that 260 channel. The 260 was really to help those people who have these feature phones and they don't have smartphones, so that they are to raise those complaints. So the systems are there. We probably just need time to make sure that they work. But as we do our work, we request that you protect yourselves, but also raise flags. Where you see there's a problem, please let us know. What is that when we analyze and we find that it's a particular company where we are getting many complaints, then we target that company for our audits to be able to systemically address the challenges that have been raised through those complaints. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you so much, Stella. I think for me, when she mentioned about noise making, and I wanted to ask everyone here that in case you're having any small meetings, please excuse us. We are discussing something very important, digital privacy and protection. So we would beg to have silence in the room so that we can have the conversation. Thank you. Okay, I'll take all the three first hands, and then we can go to the next discussion. I'll start with the lady over there.
Thank you so much, Stella. I'm just adding contrast to what she has said. And the only challenge I see, I don't know how we can really protect data for apps we did not innovate in the first place. All of us have bank apps, I suppose. You see, after a transaction, you can't even take a screenshot through that bank app. But let's say you have an enemy called so and so, they can log through your Facebook feed and download your image or follow you up from there. So I don't know how the awareness can go deep to the innovators of these apps, so that if somebody is logging through my my Snapchat or Facebook or any app I'm using or Instagram, they can't even take a screenshot of my page. And yeah, then maybe we shall be protected. So until that has been internalized, then we are still suffering. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for that. I think I'll take him, and he will be the last person. We can wait for the next round of questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Aaron. And thank you so much, our panelists, for the insightful conversation. Information on what you can do with my information. But there is a silent creature there, AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning. I'll give you an example. I'll go on Twitter. I'll follow content by Julius Malema. I'll also follow content by Donald Trump and his apologists. I'll follow content from the People's Republic of China and their Chinese Communist Party. And the kind of content they'll be feeding my mind with is radical information. So the machine is learning that I am a fan of radical information. They are going to keep bringing radical information every time I go to YouTube, every time I go to Instagram, every time I go to Twitter. Eventually, we are going to have corrupted minds, very radical minds of people whose radicality we don't know. But she mentions that government has put in place different laws. But we also know that it is the role of government to go ahead and enforce these laws. As people, I might not have the capacity to lobby for Facebook to respect my privacy, or Twitter to respect my privacy. But government is autonomy. It's autonomous. It can push. It's a negotiating body for us. It can push these countries, or they can even hold themselves as a bloc. The East African community can say, if Facebook is not respecting the data privacy, the privacy of our people on social media, the privacy of, all that stuff, if they are not respecting that, then these are the rules. This is our course of action. So at the end of the day, the biggest threat we note is not what she can do with my smartphone, or what he can do with my smartphone. It's about AI, a machine that is learning what I can do and is capable of influencing what decisions I might take further. So for me, I think it's only government that can do something to save us when it comes to AI. But I also think that as human beings, we should be skeptical about what information you provide, because as you're providing it, the machine is really learning. And very soon it will be learning way faster than it has ever learned. So it's high time we take our privacy seriously. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. You'll be the final person.
Thank you so much. God give me the courage. Once again, my name is Agaba Nelson. And I'm privileged that we have been discussing about all this. And if I was not a very, very careful person in how I transact, not only on social media, but with my phone, I would be the outcry of this country. This very month, somebody out there got a copy of my phone. Entire phone. You're talking of you being on social media. This someone has a copy of your phone out there. So he became foolish enough, and I got to know the person. So I go through MTN. I thought at first, at night, I thought, this is MTN or what? Are they using MTN? Then I went to MTN, they said, they analyzed it, the security manager and the entire crew, the top management. They said this is not from MTN. They did examination. They said, and shockingly, MTN suspected 2 sources, and one of the sources was true. Said, for us, we do not have that capacity of even giving you print of messages, bank accounts, everything. I mean, transactions, even a message from MTN, the way you have your phone, including WhatsApp, everything there. So I asked, what do I have to do? My mind kept on, thinking. And this was security now. We are talking of an organization like NITA, but there is the entire machine system manned by government that has access to every Ugandan. We all know that that was procured in 2017. And that's a machine they use to get to me. So for me, it gets back to how do we share? Imagine probably I had so much of nudity, or probably I was a schemer in some deals. I would now be exposed to this country. But luckily enough, that was not. The beauty was that, I am anti, but at least I thank the security apparatus, because the person who did it out of procedure, without protocol. This was a staff. Now it is coming to you, to the organization that says we are protecting your data. But one of your staff, without procedure, goes against the code and ethics of the organization. Agaba Nelson, I am known to Ivan. Ivan says, I need this data for this very person. Please share through the window. And that's how my phone got copied somewhere. But luckily enough, because of that procedure impropriety that happened, the young man and the fella they coordinated is behind bars. It is a case ongoing. I don't know whether that is sub judice or not. But what I felt I should share my personal story to all of us. You may think you're safe, my friend, we are no longer safe as Ugandans. We are no longer safe as Ugandans. My proposal, again, about intervention, because social media and threat about social media, it is a global concern. How? Because Uganda alone can't fight it. East Africa alone can't fight it. The way we had the issue, because there is the global threat of globalization. I mentioned about it here. Where now even countries came together, the OECD, the subscribe on the OECD. And they saw that threat of base erosion and profit shifting. We all knew that. We thought, for example, that Crane Bank was a company here in Uganda. Not knowing Crane Bank, for example, because it is a case that was handled, it was a bank owned by a Kenyan who lives in UK, but Crane Bank owned by a company which is in Mauritius, White Sapphire, which owned Crane Bank in Uganda. And they were shifting money from Uganda, Mauritius, from Mauritius to UK, then it comes back to Kenya. That's how multinationals are able to take money, source money from countries, and they even cheat paying tax. It being a threat, the OECD countries have come a global voice under the G20 since 2014, and they have pushed the BEPS solution, the 15 action point program. And it is working. We have had issues of interest deductions. You saw that case of Rwenzori. How much, if you have a holding company in Mauritius, how much profit? So you find that companies trade within themselves and money keeps there. And we have it in our laws because it is a BEPS project, international. So I think right now we need a voice through organizations and government to ensure that our voice is heard, because it is a global threat. We don't know what we can contribute so that our matter captures the attention of everybody out there, so that there is a global standard on how those multinationals operate with persons' data. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your story and also giving some of the recommendation that we should take forward. I think we can clearly see that there is nothing like 100% security. So we must be conscious of our privacy online. So we'll go to the next round of discussion. I just want to check in the room, does anyone know any frameworks that talks about data privacy? In the room? Legal frameworks on data privacy. Do you know any legal framework on data privacy for Uganda? I just want to check if we are even aware of the legal framework that we have in place.
They're very diverse. The issue is that ignorance of the law is really very big in the country. It's bad, but of course, it's not a defense anyway. So you can still be arrested if you don't know the law. The main one we have, of course, the enabling law is the Constitution that provides for protections of all persons. Privacy, general protection of privacy has been provided in the Constitution, which can be progressively interpreted to include things that were not stated, because the Constitution was in 1995 and a lot of things have changed. So progressive interpretation comes there. Then we have the Data Protection Act that is there, which also provides for how people's data should be protected and also provides offenses and the penalties for people who violate data. Then we have the Electronic Transaction Act. There's a way it guarantees protection of people's data on any electronic transaction. That is done at the national level. Uganda also made attempts to ratify some international instruments, what I can call human rights instruments that protect people's data. At the African regional level, we have the Banjul Charter, that's the African Charter on Human People's Rights. Then we have the Maputo Protocol that is basically designed for the protection of women's rights. There's a way it guarantees protection of women's privacy, which can also be progressively and accommodatively interpreted for that. Thank you. They are diverse, there are very many.
Thank you.
Yep.
You can just give it to the next.
Not on the same though. Okay. This is a question to Madame Stella. There are companies that do loans. They are digital companies. They give you like a 50K, and their terms you must accept to them accessing your camera photos, and I think that the entire data of your privacy is. How are you trying to manage them? Because the youth are really taking up these loans, the quick ones. So maybe it's another challenge.
Thank you. I think Stella will respond to that, because that's then what we're going to discuss. Anyone else who would like to say the current framework? Please don't repeat the one that has been mentioned.
I'm now talking on behalf of the tech companies you're pointing at. As a person in tech, we had a project to use actual data. So yes, there are laws, but I think they are mostly for the government entities. Or you have to go through the medical concierge, or you have to go through the medical team that is even hard to get to. So I don't know the right channels, not things of it's only the government entities that can acquire some data and private entities can't.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I wanted to out this earlier, but I wasn't given the chance. She talked about body shaming at first. Well, body shaming is not only for ladies. As you attacked some gentlemen because you talked about women. Also, men suffer the same, but this is because most of the ladies tend to post sensitive content. Is at the beach, posts those bikinis, posts everything, and then you are posting that looking for engagements, looking for likes. So those things, you have to expect what will come out of that. You also know that people will come and judge you because of what you're posting. So we have to take in mind that whatever we post is our responsibility. A lady can come out, post something, and let me talked about that word, I will call it nudity, and then fellow ladies will come and sugarcoat, oh, sorry. It isn't that. You have to take responsibility of what you are doing so that after taking that responsibility, you won't do it again. You will have to keep yourself safe and safe from the other online abusers. Thank you.
I think we need to be very conscious of the word we use, not ladies, some. And then when we talk about the aspect of nudity, first of all, the word is very misleading. Yes, we need to be conscious of the word that we use when we refer to the aspect of nudity and all that. But I'll open the floor, and I would like to hear more about the current framework that we mentioned, just to get to your attention. Some of the frameworks that we mentioned, do you think then this framework protect social media users? And then I will have Stella comment on the questions that have been asked.
Thank you. I think this continues with some of the debates we had at the time on the Twitter space. Just as I talked about, first of all, the frameworks, before they come in place, how did they come in place? That's one question we need to ask ourselves. Is it a matter of national interest? Are the members of parliament so passionate about it? I want us to see some bit of hypocrisy with our MPs. I'm sorry, Honorable, you're here. I'll tell it to your face. There are things that are, but there are certain things, the rate at which people legislate at, it's at a speed, I don't know. It's a supersonic, no, hypersonic speed. We have a lot of pressing issues on the protection of women. Parliament is very slow on legislating on it. Two, the legal aid bill has taken years. You guys are slow on it. But the rate at which you guys, was it 2 days ago, passed the anti-homosexuality thing was so fast. So that makes me question, at what speed did you, members of parliament, enact some of those laws on data protection? Two. Now, marrying that and doing a comparison with the Toji Kwatako incidents, did you guys consult us? No, you didn't. But you were all given mind to go and consult. That means you got the view of the people. There was participation in the legal process. But about these laws, there was no participation of the people. You just sat there and you did. But putting all that behind our back, the intention of the law theoretically is meant to protect. It's okay. The Attorney General has really offered wise counsel on them and the laws are okay. But the question that comes is on implementation of those laws. Just like Uganda is good at signing a lot of international instruments, but here implementing it is a problem. Now, I would like to talk about how I see the gaps in the implementation of some of those laws. Sorry, I'll always keep using the word nudity because that's a new technical that you came about with and it's still going to marinate in us slowly. The society is quick at judging women when some of those things happen. Yet you should go and start dealing with the culprit. You're attacking the what? The victim. How can her nudes leak? But she did not do it. The question that we should be asking is that, one, the law is there. Two, what legal process should we take on the culprit? Instead, we start victimizing. Actually, we make the victim a culprit. That's how weak Uganda has been with the implementation of these laws on protection, on data protection, more so when it gets into with women. So, as I always say, the application of the law is sometimes not right. That's what affects the effectiveness of the law. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I like that you're now speaking the same language. Yeah, so I will have you last and then we can have Stella speak.
Thank you so much. And mine is not a question, but a request going to the person from the PDP office. I think it's high time, with all due respect, you carried the PDP office from where it is to the ground and villages where we come from. A million Ugandans all have data that requires to be protected. And truthfully, if we are to do a census in this hall, the number of people who knew that in January is when we have a personal data protection day, there are very few who could be knowing about it. Yet, they are the people that we can say they have at least access to information. So I humbly request your office that it's high time this information leaves the ACs of those offices and then comes to our villages down. Because the people there are the ones who may be needing it even most. Because you have someone telling you that someone called me, I don't know where they got my number, and these people are here telling me that I have won money, are here telling me this and that, and some people have lost a lot of things because of those things, because they even don't know what to do after receiving such calls. They don't know what to do to protect their phones. They don't know what puts them at risk. Someone says, accessing Facebook will be enough. They give everything they wish. They be the ones sharing the different proxy things we see on WhatsApp and whichever. So I humbly request your office and your team to go out of the comfort zone of the office and move down to the ground in the villages of Toro, Ankole, Gulu, and everywhere to spread this information. I don't know if it will be palatable to the other spaces, but I humbly request. Thank you.
Can I just say two things? And I'm not a very good friend of the government, but I'm learning that all is that this fancy language is interpreted in, Karamoja and Toro and all the other places. I know it needs resources, but I feel like private sector could be a really good strategic partner for you. As Circular Design Hub, I could have a program in Jinja, and how best can you leverage that? Because I know it takes a lot of funds. So I give you the talk time that you need because I'm working with innovators in that space. And I think there's, low-hanging fruits around that. What's CAS doing in that region? How can you better partner? But I think private sector could help support the limited funding that I assume that you actually have to make this happen.
Thank you. Stella, at this point, you could just respond to the questions, and then you could give a wrap on what we can do to improve data governance in Uganda. The same with Gerard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll respond first to the specific questions that were given. One was on digital lenders. Digital lenders have been brought to our attention. We just have a few complaints that have come in, but I know, for instance, Kenya has more complaints and they're already dealing with it. The understanding we have is that when people subscribe to these digital lending apps, they subscribe to policies that enable this intrusion. For instance, when you download, the app requires you to give access to your phone book, to your, like you said, maybe pictures and things like that. And what we've learned is that then, when you default, these digital lenders will call your mother, for instance. They call the number, I think, that you call most, and they will say, Stella owes us 1 million shillings. Or they will call your husband, or they will call, or your spouse, or whoever. Of course, for us, when we investigate these issues, I'm not able to say with certainty what we are going to do because we are still in the process. The first thing we look at is what was their privacy policy, for instance. What were the terms and conditions? Did you accept those terms and conditions? Because in many cases, we do accept these terms and conditions. But lately, I've been thinking, is that enough? Especially when you talk about ethical use of data. Is that enough? Yes, you got my consent, you published the privacy policy, but is it the right thing to do? And those are issues, after we've raised enough evidence, that we may have to take to a court to determine. Because for us as regulators, we can only assess based on what the law requires us to do. But personally, I don't think it's right. Yes, I may have consented, but I don't think it's the ethical thing to do for you to then now call my parent or my spouse. So that is a work in progress, and eventually we'll be able to respond. Tech companies having a challenge getting data, that is a reality. And sometimes that is why, as PDPO, we come to some of these spaces. Because we have the civil society spectrum, which will say you must have my consent, you can't use my data, you can't, and all that. But then we also have another spectrum that requires businesses to thrive, that requires innovation, that requires tech companies, for instance, to be able to access data to innovate. During the Privacy Month in January, we had a webinar where we talked about responsible data sharing. The reason why you're not able to get that data is because these organizations are afraid that they will infringe the law, or that the data subjects will object to their sharing of their data. So in that webinar, we talk a lot about how can you share data but in a safer way. For instance, yes, you may need live data, but you may not need my names and whatever. Maybe what you need is my location, my age, my sex, whether I'm female or male, and you'll be able to still test your data. So there are certain things that you have to consider. Unfortunately, because of the misuse that happens, you must go through that protocol, however difficult it is for the tech companies. But government of Uganda is doing something. If you engage, let's say, UN Global Pulse, they are doing a lot of testing on responsible sharing of data. They have a platform that they've developed that will make it easy, and they are putting in place some of those measures that we talk about. Things like anonymization, things like segregation of data. Sometimes tech companies also receive too much information. You need to analyze, because I know for them what they want is a pool of data, and they want to use it whichever way. But it's important that we protect the individuals that need that data. Please talk to us. We can give you some guidance on what you need to do. I know earlier they talked about open data. So even government itself is opening up data sets to enable innovators thrive, but within the limitations provided by the law. There was a question on the role of government. I agree government has a big role to play to protect individuals. And of course, they've done the first steps. For instance, the Data Protection and Privacy Act was informed from the cyber law harmonization framework that was agreed by the EAC partner states way back in 2010. From that harmonization framework, we were able to get the Electronic Transactions Act, the Computer Misuse Act, the Electronic Signatures Act, the Data Protection and Privacy Act. So those forums are already open, and we know that we are going to progress some of these issues. At the AU level, we have the AU Data Policy Framework, which was approved in 2022, and the AU is also working towards the same issues. As data protection authorities across Africa, we are also discussing how to deal with the big techs as a bloc. Because we know that if Uganda goes against Facebook, we may not, or Meta, we may not succeed. But if we go as the African bloc, then we'll be able to get some traction. The gentleman going to the grassroots, I think I mentioned it earlier, that it is our intention to go to the grassroots. It is our intention to translate the laws. It is our intention to even talk about these issues in a language that people understand. So I agree with you. We are not seated comfortably in our offices. We are utilizing the lemon that we have to make as much lemonade as we can. We are very, very big on social media, by the way. So, but still, even with that, and with the team that is here, you'll still find people don't know about us. So a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. We've started that step, and we'll get there. We encourage you to come to us. If you speak Runyankore very well, and you can join us to speak about these issues, we are very open. If you invite us, we are always, actually, we are one of those government bodies where you send an email and you get a response, and we show up in these spaces so that we broaden the knowledge on these topics. Thank you.
Thank
Sorry,
you so
Sandra.
much. Gerard, in just less than 1 minute, could you just share?
Okay, in less than 1 minute, probably that at least many Ugandans, including yourselves, become more aware. Awareness is the key thing in your life. You have to be aware of what you are doing. You have to know big tech companies, the government itself, small tech companies want your attention, want you to harvest your data, what you are doing, where you are doing it, and therefore you strive to protect yourself. But we also want to see, like she said, more open data. There is not every data really is private, to be able to inform decisions of people and to make technology useful. But most important, I think someone did talk about the importance of literacy, of digital media literacy. We've been talking to, in many fora, government promising they are going to, mainstream digital literacy in, e-learning, and these are some of the issues. How do we introduce technology to kids when, what mechanisms are there to promote, protect them? So if people are not aware of the dangers and benefits and what is actually helpful for them and what is not, it's going to continuously be hard to get that digital dividend for utilizing these digital technologies. So we are hoping that more effort can be invested in training people on what it means to engage on a platform, what it means to install that app, not like the usual bank thing of signing the terms and conditions. You really need to know what they're harvesting from you. Many of them have these conditionalities of where you can go in and switch your rights, but many of us don't mind. Even locally, there are mechanisms, we give the government a lot of data when they NIRA captured our data. What do they use it for? I think part of the best practices we expect are these kind of public commitments of how your data is used. I would hope that next time government can also give us their commitment on how they handle data, when they hand our data to MTN, to the banks, what data are they handing in and under what terms, so that there is trust. Of course, we need some regulation, but it's good that it's exercised in a way that the primary beneficiaries are aware and have some sort of consent in terms of the level at which their data is being shared, and that in the end we're able to utilize technologies to develop both ourselves but also to make our daily life better from the decisions that companies and governments can target us well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stella and Gerard. Gerard Businje is a lecturer of data ethics and data governance. And we would like to also thank all of you for the amazing participation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this amazing session. This session was in cooperation with Personal Data Protection Office and Ministry for ICT. So a big round of applause for that team. Okay, up next we have one last session as people move in from the other room. This plenary discussion is going to be mostly around getting ahead of fake information, or rather fake news and disinformation on social media. I think that is what we have been building up to this moment, because most of the questions or queries or worries were about misinformation. We make sure that we are not misinforming the public on social media. To moderate this session is Henry Bonnet from CAS. He's from Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. He is a policy advisor for Southern Africa, media and political parties. Please put your hands together for Henry. To actually get your pictures, you can scan that code, yeah? Make sure you're getting pictures that are your own and not of other people. Probably if you're getting pictures of other people, they could be the panelists. Yeah, thank you.
For the last session, it's going to be the best, at least. And I have with me today Vincent Goethe. Please take your chair. I have with me Grace Linda Nabatanzi. Is she here? Looking forward to get to know her. And I have two. I still feel quite lonely on stage. Hi, Vincent. Please take your seat. Okay. Me and Vincent trying to entertain you, okay? So, understand, from the country Georgia in Europe, not the United States state. And also Mykola from Ukraine, where a war is raging. He's also online, and we will see him in a second. Or we will actually not see him in a second, because he's in war. We can only call him by his first name. But he can listen and talk to us and involve the discussion. So we have people from Kenya, from Uganda, from Germany, from Ukraine, from Georgia here. And it seems like we all have the same problem with disinformation and fake news. And I think what ties it all together, I was thinking a little bit of a picture, what I could tell you in order to pay attention and understand what's going on. I know that there are elephants in Africa, a big furry animal. And the big animal in the room is a big Russian bear. Russia, usually we have a symbol for Russia, which is a bear, and I want you to imagine a Russian bear who's in the room. In Ukraine, where Mykola is, he's exclusively about Russia, But first of all, definitely about how we can get ahead of disinformation and fake news. I would first like to turn to Mykola to greet him in Ukraine, and thank you very much for tuning in. Mykola, can you hear us?
I can hear you perfectly. Let me know if you can hear me.
Great, Mykola. We don't know exactly where you are right now, but we really appreciate you tuning in Uganda. The war seems to be very far away. How is it with you? How is it today in Ukraine?
Well, each day of this war is pretty much the same. So we have new shellings, new attacks. It's been taking toll for so long, and today another day with casualties among civilians. Some senior woman died because of the shelling in the city of Kherson in the south. So it's pretty sad, optimistic, because optimism.
Right.
So
I wanted to ask you about
glad
this.
to be here.
Because the war is going on for already over a year, and we in Europe especially, but I also think in Africa, we're quite amazed how you can keep in check the Russian bear, so to say, keep in check the Russian army who's attacking you every day. How do you stay positive? How do you stay strong enough to resist?
Now that's it's the good way you put it. I think that I first read it in the New York Times article, which was actually about our Twitter account and overall social media team of Ukrainian government. So they used the term poking the bear. So what we do is, so we, first of all, right? But we should not let fear control our minds and souls. And as evident as it might sound, to just keep them in what you're doing. So I guess this is part of our success, particularly with our Defense Ministry account, and it also relates to so many aspects. What we've been through this year, this idea that when they do evil things to us, we can do evil things to them as well. But what we're going to do with them first is we're going to mock them. Okay, so we're going to make fun of them, we're going to ridicule them, and so they will feel.
And I want to play a very small game with our panelists, so please also stay attentive, and you will see what the game will be about. But before we turn to the game, let's talk to Natalia.
Hi, I'm doing it in Kampala today than in Tbilisi. But
we will make the most out of it that we have you two online. I wanted to ask you, Natalia, so tell us a little bit about, you are a co-founder of Coda Story in Europe. Tell us a little bit what the main thinking behind your work is.
Yeah, actually, Coda Story is, we describe it very differently. We're writers that are...
But still, I don't know if I would always recognize fake news and disinformation every time I see it. I think that's a big challenge, not only in Africa or in Europe, it's everywhere a big challenge. And I want to ask Vincent, who's here with us today. So what do you do about this? You want to show us something, and let's see if we can find out what...
My name is Vincent Ngethe, and I am a writer doing fact-checking work for the Nation Media Group in Kenya, for Africa Check in Kenya, and also for the Kenya Editors Guild as well. And I'm hoping that from this session we will learn a little about how to deal with false information in high-stakes events like national, to affect the conversations immediately before the false information spreads.
Great, so let's take a look at that, what you have brought with you today, right?
Yes, yes.
Can we ask our tech guys, please, to start the screen?
Mes chers compatriotes, Gabonaises, Gabonais, avant toute chose, permettez-moi de vous adresser.
It was his first public statement since falling ill, and he looked different. A neurologist told the Post his appearance appeared consistent with someone who had a stroke or a brain injury, and even cosmetic procedures.
He has a great deal of facial makeup, and I think he probably had Botox because neither side of his face is moving. You don't see the wrinkles in his forehead and in most of the rest of the face. If you look at his eye, the distance between the upper lid and the lower lid is greater on the right than the left, and that's an indication of facial weakness. And finally,
so what was it all about?
That is. So this is the president of Gabon, Ali Bongo, and I got this video from the Washington Post. And the reason why this video is important is because it is credited with almost having caused a coup. So when this video came out, he was giving the New Year address in January 2019. And people looked at it and they thought it was a fake because Ali Bongo didn't look the way he normally looks. And they thought that it was a fake video and maybe he was not alive or something like that. So some soldiers in the army, partly convinced by this video, tried to overthrow the government in Gabon. So I just want to help us understand that when you have uncertainty about information, it can lead to major life-changing, life-threatening events. And so it's very important for us to understand the impact misinformation can have.
So we have examples of that fake, the war, the information war we are right in. Natalia, maybe you want to first talk out of your experience. Do you might have an example?
I have plenty of examples. I've got one from yesterday, actually. As you probably all know, the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, Chinese leader, was in Moscow meeting with President Putin. And one of the most popular photographs that went around social media and was tweeted and shared by thousands and thousands of people, I don't actually know by how many, is that of Putin kneeling in front of Xi Jinping and sort of like hugging his knees. A total fake, you know, not true, but taken very seriously by very many. But I think more poignant example, I mean, you know, the war in Ukraine just provides, and, you know, Georgia as well. I mean, 20% of Georgia is occupied by Russia. The prelude to what we are seeing in Ukraine today was really the 2008 conflict, war, invasion of Georgia by Russia. But, you know, endless examples. And when I was covering the war in Ukraine in 2014, and of course it's really important to remember that this latest invasion is just that. It's the latest invasion. The war began much, much earlier. And I remember doing a story for the BBC. All of the Russian news reports did a story about this girl who was killed by Ukrainians in the city of Donetsk. And we very meticulously went and sort of tried to... Ask any Georgian, ask a Ukrainian, ask an Estonian. That is simply not true. That is not how maybe currents of this region, even though they our conquerors, our colonial power, they didn't come from the overseas. They came from across the border of an ability to determine our own future, which is obviously the definition of colonialism. And that is now something that, you know, Russia works very hard and very effectively in many places around the world to rewrite.
Thank you very much, Natalia, for explaining that to us. I want to turn to Mikola, but first I want to greet Grace Linda Nabatanzi, who has joined us now on the podium. Thank you so much for coming and being here. Mikola, let me first ask you, because we were now on the topic of disinformation, and you are working with the armed forces of Ukraine, and in a way your main job is also to bring light into the darkness of war. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you are doing and what your goals are?
Yes. I want to thank just quickly Natalia for her comment on this false colonial narrative. This is something that, you know, I'm disgusted with, because all Russian, their map right now, what the Russian Federation right now is the mixture of colonized Ukraine specifically right now, is to basically say that we have never existed, our language have never existed, and there is no such nation as. But you know, that's. I'm going to just a few words for Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, and I specifically part of the team that runs Ministry of Defense Twitter account. We've become, you know, quite a sensation, I would say, but don't take my word for it. Just Google us and check, you know, Financial Times, New York Times, other media that wrote about us. So we have. So it's something you know, that people, particularly, you know, in war. So that I think that's what makes us unique. And again, don't take my word for it. What we've been doing for past year is that we try to convey our narrative about what's happening in Ukraine. You know, about us. You know, strong and brave people.
Dies in war is the truth. Dies in war is the truth. So it's good that you are trying to bring light into that situation. But let's now take one step back, because as I said, Ukraine is quite far from disinformation is all about mental health, the manipulation part of it. If possible, for lays like us, for people who don't know a lot about medicine, that you can explain to us, what is the psychology behind?
I think I should apologize. Yeah, but it's lovely to be here. It's lovely to see all of you. And about fake news, you will notice that, yeah, and the reason for that is, so you see, maybe let me go back a bit. After COVID, you'll notice that fake news, the last 2 years, lockdown, COVID, there were so many bad stories around the pandemic. So the mind started to react more to the negative than so we were exposed more to the bad, negative stories. People dying, people sick, people in critical condition. And ideally, also, there's a part of our brain, the amygdala, is like planted. Yeah, it reacts more and faster.
But how can we battle that? I mean, it's true that when we look at the news in Germany, in Uganda, usually the bad news dominate. We don't hear a lot about good news, especially also in the COVID pandemic. I know we could have used much more good news to keep.
What you choose to expose yourself to, yeah? Because I remember there's a point where us as mental health specialists were telling people, choose the news to believe, choose the TV and you know what you're Googling. Before you share it, check your facts, check your source.
Hence videos than the news.
Starts to react more and respond better to than the negative. You will be happier and you will be able to notice another person who is happier when you expose yourself to the happy moments. Yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick comment. Can you hear me? Just a quick comment from the experience I've had with verifying fake news and false information. a lot of it is deliberately chosen to trigger your emotions. So whoever is choosing it is going to choose something that is going to shock you, or they're going to make you happy, or they're going to make you satisfied. And what I mean by satisfied is that something that agrees with you, something that will make you feel contented. In recent days in Kenya, we've seen a lot of false information, especially shared on TikTok, around the demonstrations that have been happening in Kenya and all the riots that have been going on. And the misinformation that is causing a lot of impact is invariably misinformation of people being beaten by policemen or people fighting. And to say that this video shows your people being beaten, and they are being beaten here in this part of town, it's like Kampala, they just get on their motorbikes and just reach there immediately. Everyone gets there, and before you know it, people are fighting. It's something that can happen.
Sorry, can you turn it off so we have this microphone? Thanks. I want to ask Natalia later, but maybe first you, Vincent. You're allowed to check and to double check and then spread the information that it's false. It's very hard. Are we always one step behind?
So you are always playing a sense of catch-up in the short term. But in the medium term and the long term, there are certain things we can do so that there are certain things we can do to lessen, also to prepare ourselves. False, because I have checked it. When it's still spreading, Baidu, if you're in China, you can verify. So it is within the power of everybody to have impact in that situation.
Thank you. Natalia, what's your advice? We just heard, please talk again.
Okay, this advice is right. Personal hygiene is very important. And these are simple things, right? Just think before you tweet, like think before you share, and so on. But unfortunately, the problem with misinformation and disinformation, they're slightly different things, is, but the result of them is the same. They basically cheapen the truth, and they deprive all of our societies of that, like, ultimate sort of agreement, ability to agree on something, and they make a conversation. And the problem with that